Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the next episode of CAEports Show.
The Toronto Defiant will not be denied.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of
The first
CAEports. Yeah, I was going to say, it's been a while for us on this channel, and I'm sure if you've been a fan of ours, thank you, one, for being a fan of ours, but also, two, you've been wondering where we are. If you don't follow us on Twitter, I definitely recommend that you do that because that's where we really share all these updates. We've been actually creating content for another channel called Made in Esports. And you can, again, we'll put all that link in the description down below. You can go over to their channel and check out some of the content that we've been making there. We do bi-weekly videos where we cover the Call of Duty League and the Overwatch League on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's not like we've completely stopped following and creating content. Those are more general Call of Duty and Overwatch League videos, but they do have an emphasis on Toronto. Obviously, that's where we're from. That's what we watch the most of. That's sort of our niche, if you will. So if you guys are a fan of ours, we definitely recommend that you go over there and check out their stuff. And again, follow us on Twitter for all those sort of updates. But we're back on the main channel, and I think this is going to be something we consider to do. Again, if you guys know, we had like an Overwatch one where we talked about the Toronto Defiant, and then we had a Call of Duty one where we talked about the Toronto Ultra. And I think the plan moving forward, and again, we'll do another video highlighting all of this more in detail, a little bit more scripted.
Yeah.
But the plan moving forward is going to be to cover both the Toronto esports franchises, that being the Call of Duty Toronto Ultra and the Overwatch one Toronto Defiant, on this one channel, and just call it the CAEports Show. That way it's a little bit more digestible. Again, guys, we'll have the timestamps for you down so you can obviously go through there and figure that out yourself.
Of course.
But with that, I guess, long introduction out of the way, I am one of your hosts, Spencer, and with me is Chris. And Chris, how's it going?
Oh, guys, we have two sides of a coin right now. On the one side, I am so happy for Toronto, and on the other side, I'm so sad.
Yeah,
Dead inside.
which is I guess kind of the story of last year, right? When you looked about the potential of these two teams in terms of the Call of Duty and the Overwatch League, where the Toronto Defiant coming off a pretty disappointing season last year, and the Toronto Ultra was doing the exact opposite, where it was disappointing all year long and then kind of skyrocketed at the end there, where it left us with some hope. And then I think you could argue that both seasons start off the exact opposite, where Toronto Ultra came out of the gate struggling, and then Toronto Defiant came out with a reverse sweep over the Atlanta. And obviously a dominating 3-0 victory over, or 3-1, I guess, but like technically I like to consider it 3-0 over Vancouver. And it almost looked like it was two sides of a different coin. And then since then they've sort of just done a complete swap, if you will. And I think for Toronto Defiant, I was not as surprised. I think there was always signs that they weren't as good as their 3-1 record was leading them to seem.
Like we can start with the stonks, the Scrimbuck stonks.
Yeah, exactly. People were pretty low on them going into the year based around how they were performing in scrims. They did reverse sweep the Reign, which was a big thing, but then the Reign didn't look as strong as people thought they were. And then also, even in that reverse sweep, one, ideally you're not down 2-0 in the first place to do the reverse sweep, but also two, in those first two rounds, there's some very clear communication issues, and those communication issues I was hoping would improve as we had the 2-week break in stage one, and they did not. They came back and they played Washington, and they looked, just as poor as they did before. And I think they were able to beat London barely somehow, and we didn't look good while beating London. So,
guys, let's just focus on Toronto Defiant for now. We're focused on Ultra after. We beat them because of pure individual raw talent. Looks like ladder games.
Yeah,
there's no joke in ladder games to me.
I was pretty disappointed with the level of consistency that I saw. And on one hand, I get it. You saw some of the comments of people on Discord, some of the comments on people on Twitter. It is a brand new roster for the most part. Yeah. I get that. There are some growing pains that come along with that, and it was the first stage of the year. But the problem that I was trying to tell people then, and you're seeing it now, is that yeah, it's a new roster, but we still have a great coaching staff. I mean, we're supposed to have, right? KDG has been very successful around a lot of different, teams that he's worked for. We've had I don't want to say a core, but two pieces of the league-winning Philadelphia Fusion. last year came from what was at times a top 5 team in NA last year. So yeah, we have some rookies in Unsanjay and Nice, and yeah, Michelle hasn't played in a year, but one, that's the team that we constructed, and two, they're also surrounded by some pretty veteran, talented players. So I was really expecting that team to come out of the gates and look a lot better than they did. I wasn't expecting perfection by any means, but the team really looked uncoordinated. Like people were way over-channeling, way overstepping themselves. Alt usage was horrendous.
Over-channeling, eh?
Yeah, I'm getting Call of Duty and yeah, but anyways, you know what I'm trying to say. Like alt usage was horrendous, and people were like, "Hey, it's okay. We're 3-1. We're going into June," and they're all excited. And I wanted to be one of those people, but I was like, guys, I really don't have a lot of hope for this team in the next stage unless we see some drastic improvements. And then sure enough, we get into stage 2 and we haven't, and we're down 3-1. And now I will give them a little bit of slack because there's obviously some COVID situations that happened with that team behind the. I don't know the exact details, but like Logic's ended up in the hospital, so our hearts go out to everybody who was involved with that. I hope at the end of the day everybody's safe. That's definitely what's most important. Yeah. So I can obviously imagine how difficult going through something like that would be. I'm sure at the beginning they were trying to play through that before they obviously got to the point where they had to stop. And then they bring in a guy like Aspire on 30 days notice. So there are reasons to give this team a bit of a pass. The only thing that concerns me a little bit is that I didn't see any improvements when they played the first week. And again, who knows what was happening at that point in time. But I also didn't see any improvements from May. And so it's not like it was a drastic drop-off. It was sort of what we've been seeing. So how much of this is like what was going on behind the scenes and how much of this is just, I don't know, something else entirely?
Yeah, guys, like, look I hate shitting on a team. Like, it's that simple. Like, but we do it because we love them. Like, that's why we do it. But there's just some things that, like, you cannot explain with like, oh, it's a new team coordination. When you see like Nice, like when you see Nice duplicate somebody after we lost 3 people, and duplicate like, I don't know, an honor.
Yeah, exactly.
When we see Sato like pop an ult when he's literally by himself on the newest point B. When we see
Michelle just whiffing grabs, like it's
Aston throw like a barrier when we're down 3-0. Like it's these individual moves that do not require the level of team coordination that you do to make the right play.
Yeah.
And I always say that like us two, we're like, or Spencer's more of like a diamond main tank. I'm more of a plat main tank. And if we're noticing these things with our skill level, I cannot imagine what your top 500, your GM people would notice based off of their experience and their knowledge of the game. Not Overwatch. Toronto is doing, poorly or off.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, you could just like look at the team. And I think you saw some pretty drastic communication issues. Like, and it's the talent's there. That's one of the most disheartening parts. I think is that the talent is very clearly there. Like when people are like, "Hey, we beat London 3-1," and I'm like, I don't know. Like you, in my opinion, could not have watched that London game and came away positive. Like that London game for Toronto was like the biggest red flag to me because I was like, man, yeah, we beat London, but we barely beat London. London, who was a European contenders team who lost to American Tornado. Like, I know they're missing Sparker, but still, like that should have been a very convincing win if Toronto was at the level of which everybody expected them to be, and we barely squeaked by. And in my opinion, we only beat them because we were just sheer, like we just had more talent. Like they would get a pick, and then we could just use an ult and win because our players are just more talented because we do have some insane talent on this roster. Last year was being ranked as, top 5 flex support coming off last year in NA. Sato was one of a top 5 main tank all year long globally. Right? Hisu, I think, is one of the best hit scan players. I thought was going to be one of the best hit scan players coming to the league. I think he's actually played pretty well. But clearly something in this roster just hasn't been working in terms of their communication. And now communication can be fixed. I got to see it before I believe it. And it's tough because I know some things have happened behind the scenes. And maybe we'll try to get somebody else on to learn a little bit more about what actually has gone on behind the scenes. And I don't want to bash the team too hard, especially recently, because like the fact that like Logic's ended up in the hospital and you have to pick up a guy from North American contenders on 30 days notice. Like, don't get me wrong. That's shitty, especially when you're a team that needs to improve your coordination, to have like a few weeks where maybe you can't practice or some key people on your team can't communicate or can't give 110% because they're obviously going through an illness, a very serious illness, like, I get that. And so I know it sounds like I'm harping hard. The problem is we haven't recorded one of these in a few months, so part of this is leftover frustration from stage 1, where I don't think they get that pass. But I do very much sympathize with them for stage 2. I think that there's some like things that need to be improved, and there's some people who have disappointed me, and I think, you know, we can go a little bit more detail, but Nice being one of them. I as far as I know, knock on wood, the COVID hasn't really affected him, and I think he really needs to improve his ult usage and knowing when to engage and when not to engage, and when to be aggressive and when not to be aggressive, because I find there's multiple times where he's cut out of position, and I think, he has some flashy plays where he carries team fights, but more often than not, he also overextends and dies first and kind of costs his team fights, and I think at this level, you just can't be playing like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think let's stop being negative. Let's stop shitting on Toronto. So let's switch the lakes, hop the pond, go over to the Ultra side. I wonder if these guys, quick thought though, I wonder if these guys interact every day. I wonder if like Beast like goes over to Kleenex and is like, hey, what's up, dude? How's it going?
I don't know how much they interact like that, but I mean, you saw in the videos, they're always like, oh, like the Overwatch team is scrimming. I'm sure they very much come across one another.
The thing is it's like school where they just like walk by each other. They're like,
I'll have to ask.
Their backpacks on. Just
we'll have to get somebody on and see what it's like. That's funny. I never even thought about that, but you're right.
Weird thought.
Is Beast just shotgunning with Bance in like the back room or something like that after a victory? Are they getting the champagne after Toronto wins their championship?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I know like the whole persona around COD and Overwatch is a little bit different. Personalities are a little bit different, so it's definitely an interesting thought. Anyway, Toronto Ultra, finally. That's some positive stuff to talk about. These guys, I think, have gone through one of the biggest changes in their dichotomy that I've seen so far in my esports, my esports experience. Like, how many times have we seen in the middle of a season a team going from one of the worst teams in the league to one of the best, not the best, because we know FaZe is the best, but one of the best teams in the league, top 2.
Yeah, like, it was incredibly impressive, and I want to have Marky be on the show so bad because I just want to figure out. I felt like I had a really good read on this team. I felt like I knew where they're ceiling. And again, if you're a Toronto fan and you're a Toronto esports fan, you need to start following Call of Duty because our team's great on the Call of Duty side of things. So Overwatch Media,
Call of Duty is really exciting,
and then they've done a great job of building that roster because I thought I had a great read on this team. I thought we were going to be. If you told me would Toronto win a chip, would not have surprised me. I always thought they were. I think I had them 5 in my power rankings. I had them as a 5 or 6, a dark horse team that would consistently struggle to overcome the big 4, being like FaZe, Dallas, Optic. And I think I had the Thieves in there at the time. Regardless, those were the big 3, the big 4. But on the right day, in the right moment, could get hot in a tournament and upset some teams. Kleenex could get hot, and they could take some teams to the brink and maybe like upset and get lucky and win a championship or one of those chips, right? And kind of finish in that 5, 6, 7 slot and just be a dangerous team to watch out for, but never a team that was going to be consistently favored against your Dallas Fuels or your Dallas Empires and your Chicago Op, right? Like I didn't think they had that ceiling to legitimately be one of the top 2 teams in the game, and I was just wrong. Which is like
you were just wrong.
Which is kind of crazy because I really didn't think I was going to be. I heard people be low on this team who had them like the bottom 4, bottom 5, and I thought I was like the smart one, gassing them up. I put them on like 5 or 6, and right now I'd probably say that they are the second best team in the game, convincingly. At worst, you put them 3rd, and they could win. I think any championship, stage 4, stage 5, and win the whole thing, and it wouldn't surprise me. And that's insane to me because I really didn't think that was their ceiling, and it very clearly is.
No, it definitely is. And I think what's really, really important to note here is that we've, like, before, there's something clicked that behind the scenes that we can maybe talk about a little bit more that isn't necessarily really apparent. Because in the past, we've seen little glimpses from Cammy, a little bit of bands too, not as much. Seen some good stuff from Kleenex, but never really the consistency. So I don't know, like, to me, I gotta think of what's changed in terms of consistency for them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, and you brought up earlier to go from the bottom to the top. There was a legitimate moment, I believe, in stage 2 where they were losing to the LAG, where they were down. Like, I think they just lost their other map to go down 2-1. And I was like, this potentially is the worst team in the league. Like, I think at that particular moment, you could have made a legitimate argument. I would have disputed it, but there was an argument to be made that they were the worst team, if not a bottom 2, bottom 3 team in the entire league to go become a championship team after they made the Insight for methods change. But you're right, because even at that point, Insight was already in, so it's not even just that. I can't describe it. I need to talk to Marky B because something clicked where the team just figured out their play style perfectly. Everybody knew their role. Everybody's willing to be selfish. Like, I don't know if it's a mentality thing. I don't know if it comes down to the culture they built from, the top down in terms of the coaching to the players, because you hit the nail on the head where I don't think it's just like raw talent that's carrying them. It's a combination of raw talent and knowing which plays to make, when to play them, and where their individuals are going to be on the map and how to work off one another. Like, it's truly been impressive to see.
I think I'm not going to be like, yes, Marky B is the sole reason why they have been this good, but I feel like there's something to be said about they probably had a certain level of raw talent just in them that, like, Marky B figured out how to unlock.
I don't even know if that's because that's the Marky B deserves credit, but you can't say it's all Marky B. Like, we talked about Kimi and Kleenex potentially being two of the best young players in the league coming into this year. I think they've shown that. We talked about the ceiling that Insight had and how Toronto should go after him in the offseason. They did, and we've seen that. And I think that Bance was definitely the one I was the most wrong on. We always knew the leadership capabilities that he brought, but I wasn't sure if he could change up his play style from stage 1 to maybe mix it up on the map more, provide a little bit more map pressure. And he did exactly that and more. So I don't know how much really Marky B goes into unlocking like the talent of Cam and Kleenex, especially since we'd seen them reach those ceilings before Marky B, but I think he deserves a lot of credit in terms of just bringing everybody together, getting them on the same page, and making that play style work. So, yeah, obviously he doesn't deserve all the credit, but he definitely has very much impressed with his ability to like have a game plan and stick to it.
Yeah, and just one or two more things just to up Toronto a little bit. I think that one really key difference that have turned them even more into a top 2 team is the fact that they're able to really be able to adjust to deficiencies on the fly. I'm going to be like completely blunt. I think one of their main issues before was being able to deal with
adapt.
Not adapt, but like not before. One of the things that they've been a little bit susceptible to in the past is being able to deal with flankers. I think we used to see that a lot in Control and in S&D. Is being able, and it kind of hurts doesn't jam with their play style a lot. But we saw a really sweet change in the Dallas Empire game in S&D just this last week, where they were losing the last 2 or 3 rounds simply because Dallas was pulling some really good flanks, and they were able to adapt that mid-game in order to counter that and really take home the S&D series or S&D map.
Yeah. No, and like I said, they've been able to do stuff all year long. I'd really like to hear more about, too, especially some of the stuff that maybe Insight's brought to the table that maybe was lacking when Methods was in the roster. Like, just random things that he can bring that have helped round out this team's roster in terms of their fit. Because, yeah, that really was, I think, the catalyst to start this change. But I agree, the adaptivity has been there, and they've improved upon that. I wonder if it's just his abilities to maybe take more aggressive fights against opposing ARs to create more space for Cam and Kleenex to run wild. Like, at this point, I generally don't know, but I'd really love to hear input on some of the things that they've done differently, because it's the turnover of the team has been incredible, and they don't really show any signs of slowing down. I know they had a bit of a rough game versus Florida, but you're right, they bounced back and had a very impressive performance versus the Dallas Fuel Empire. And I don't really see them, necessarily slowing down. Are they going to win the next chip? Maybe not, but they're in that. I expect them to be in that contention, and I expect them to, be in that top 4 conversation. So if you're a Toronto Ultra fan, you got some bright news ahead of you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they have one upcoming game this week,
London,
against London Royal Ravens. Yeah. I don't see them really getting too much pressure from London.
Yeah, they got London and they got the Gorillas.
You got the Gorillas
on Thursday. Well, no, sorry, Gorillas the week after that.
Yeah.
So they got London, then they got the Gorillas, and then obviously they go up against New York, and that New York game should be a tough one. But again,
I am so excited for that.
There's a very real possibility where we win all these next games and still finish on the first seed, which didn't seem possible after you lost to Florida. But given the map count, depending on how dominantly, you beat some of these next teams. If you beat them, obviously, knock on wood. You know, these teams can be sneaky good, and we'll see. But, man, great performance with Toronto. I'm very excited to see what they can bring moving forward.
Awesome, guys. And with that, I'm super excited you guys listened to one of our first episodes of CAEports in a while. We like getting back to normal and just chatting about casual stuff in relation to Toronto specific, going into a little bit deeper dive, talk about the strategies and stuff. So tune with us next week. We're going to give a nice highlight to hopefully the win over London Royal Ravens, and probably preview the next week coming up.
Knock on wood. Yeah. As always, guys, thank you for watching and enjoy.